So imagine you're walking down like a totally normal street in Tokyo.
Yeah, just a typical afternoon.
Yeah. You hear the rumble of the commuter trains. You smell that hot asphalt baking in the sun.
Yeah.
Maybe you're holding an iced coffee.
Sounds pretty nice, honestly.
It does. But without even realizing it, you just crossed this invisible medieval border that actually used to be a matter of life and death.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. I mean, you look at a modern map of a mega city, right? And you see concrete permanence, clean grids, administrative boundaries.
Yeah, everything looks totally fixed.
Exactly. But for this deep dive, we're looking at a very specific neighborhood, the former Iriarai town.
Which today is the Omori and Sano area of Oda Ward.
Right. And in that specific area, that modern map is entirely broken. We're exploring a landscape that has literally been a battleground between ancient spiritual magic and modern city planning for centuries.
It's basically the perfect example of a liminal space. Because the physical architecture we see today, it's just this really thin crust over a very deep, very old spiritual fault line.
Yeah, and we have this completely fascinating geological and historical report about this one single patch of land. So the mission for today is to look at 5 historical clashes from this neighborhood.
And we'll uncover these sensory-rich hidden gems that you can, actually physically visit today.
Right. We want to figure out what happens when the human need for a spiritual anchor goes up against the secular grid of the state. So, okay, let's unpack this, because the idea that you could be walking to a convenience store and stepping over a barrier that once held off armies is just incredible to me. Where do we even start?
Well, we really have to start in the medieval era. Because to understand this invisible landscape, we need to look at how geography itself was weaponized, essentially, as a shield against secular authority.
Oh, wow. Geography as a weapon.
Yeah. Before it was a modern Tokyo ward, this area was a village known as Iriarai-machi. And Iriarai-machi held this highly unusual legal status known as Finuken.
Which translates to something like no entry, right?
Exactly.
So,
For secular tax collectors, it was a spatial immunity zone.
They literally just couldn't go in.
Right. But this wasn't just some tax loophole written on a piece of parchment. It was a physical and spiritual boundary. The village formed this strict geometric line between the Iwai Shrine and the local Washinomiya Shrine.
Okay, so they used the shrines as anchor points.
Yes. And in the blended Shinto and Buddhist ontology of that time, crossing that line to collect taxes wasn't just illegal. It was viewed as a violent extraction of the land's natural energy, its key.
That is fascinating. It's almost like a medieval diplomatic pouch or an embassy where the local tax cops literally couldn't cross the street without triggering like a spiritual international incident.
That's a really great way to look at it, actually.
But I do have to push back a little here. I mean, how does an invisible geometric energy barrier actually hold off armed men? If a medieval state wants its money, they usually just march in with swords, don't they?
That raises such an important question. Because, to a modern mind, a law without a physical wall or an army seems completely flimsy.
Right, like what's stopping them?
Well, you have to put yourself in their worldview. The spiritual and the physical weren't separate categories for them. That boundary was enforced by the very real, visceral terror of Kagar, which means spiritual defilement.
Oh, so they were legitimately terrified of the consequences.
Completely. The secular authorities fundamentally believed that breaching that specific triangle of land would disrupt the terrestrial energy flow. Like it would bring down plagues, famines, or massive floods.
So it was a psychological standoff.
Exactly. The perceived cost of divine punishment far outweighed any tax revenue they could get.
And what's amazing is you can still feel the remnants of this standoff if you visit today. Like you can walk right up to this ancient border at Iriarai-machi Park and the Amazaki Inari Shrine.
Yeah, the sensory experience there is really something else.
It totally is. If you stand on the edge of the park, you get this incredible olfactory clash. You smell the heated, modern asphalt from the city streets, and it mixes right into the dry, woody scent of these ancient, gnarled pine trees inside the shrine grounds.
And there's actually a measurable physical anomaly at that boundary line, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When you step under the stone torii gate of the shrine, the ambient temperature actually drops by about 0.5 degrees Celsius compared to the street just a few feet away.
Wait, really? Just instantly drops half a degree?
Yeah, it's very sudden.
Wow. It's like the land is still holding its breath. You feel that sudden chill. You hear the distant screech of the modern KQ commuter trains, and you can almost visualize a tax collector's horse stopping dead at that invisible line.
That's a powerful image.
But of course, that barrier didn't hold forever, right? And the official records actually have a massive blank here.
Right, they really do.
They don't explain exactly when or by what violent clash this sacred tax-free barrier was finally broken. The immunity just sort of fades from the ledgers.
It makes you wonder, though. I mean, resisting authority with an invisible geographic line only works as long as the authority fears the land.
Right, so what happens when they stop caring?
Exactly. When the state stops caring about the spiritual consequences, that sacred autonomy gets crushed. And when that happened with a new, more ruthless secular power, the local people couldn't use the land as a shield anymore.
So they had to adapt.
Right. So they shifted their defiance into physical objects.
Which takes us to our second story. In the year 1677, the era of the shogun. We go from a whole village holding a geographical line to just 6 men trying to survive an economic nightmare.
Yes. So the area fell under the control of Lord Kihara, and Kihara instituted these brutal, completely secret land surveys.
Secret surveys.
Yeah, he essentially double-counted the land to artificially inflate taxes to an impossible level. It was systematic starvation. Farmers were forced to sell their horses and eventually their own daughters just to pay the tax.
That is just, incredibly desperate times.
It was horrific. So 6 local leaders, who are known today as the Arishuku martyrs, they plotted a direct appeal in Osso to the shogun himself.
Which, back then, was a capital offense, right?
It was a suicide mission from the start. But they were betrayed from within their own village before they even left.
Oh, wow. Betrayed by their own people.
Yeah. They were secretly arrested in Nido and beheaded. And here is where Kihara's cruelty really shows. Because he didn't just kill them, he instituted a strict policy of spatial censorship.
Spatial censorship, what does that mean exactly?
He banned all funerals and all memorials for them. The goal was to completely erase these 6 men from physical space and human memory entirely.
So what does this all mean for the people left behind? If you're a villager and you can't even mourn your family publicly without risking execution, how do you process that grief? You can't just pretend your leaders didn't exist.
What's fascinating here is how the local Buddhist priest, a man named Nikio, engineered a physical loophole to fight back.
Okay, I love a good historical loophole. How did he do it?
Well, first you have to understand the mechanics of what he pulled off. The village is under intense surveillance by Kihara's spies, right? But Nikio manages to secretly recover the 6 bodies. And in the dead of night, in total silence, he buries them. If he's caught with a shovel, he loses his head too.
Absolutely insane risk.
Totally. Then, years later, a surviving son of one of the martyrs works with the temple to build a tombstone at the local Zenkeiji temple. But it was a dual-purpose object.
A double-sided tombstone, right.
Exactly. On the front, deeply carved for everyone to see, it displayed standard, state-approved filial piety, just a son honoring his parents.
So it performed the necessary compliance to fool the physical censorship.
Yes, it fooled the shogunate guards completely. But hidden in the shadows, carved into the back and sides of the stone where the guards wouldn't easily see, those were the real secret Buddhist names of the 6 martyrs.
It's brilliant. It's literally geometric camouflage. The villagers could go to the graveyard, bow to what looked like a completely normal family grave, but they were actually aligning their bodies with the hidden names on the back.
It was a very quiet, very profound form of rebellion.
They found a way to channel their grief right under the state's nose. And if you go to Zenkeiji Temple today, you can step off the pavement into the cemetery behind the temple, and the vibe is just visceral. You can smell the damp earth. You can reach out and touch this rough, moss-covered 17th century granite tombstone.
Yeah, and if you visit on a rainy day, the air has this faint metallic smell, like old straw and rusted iron.
Oh, wow.
It really grounds you in the reality of what those midnight burials must have felt like.
You definitely feel the weight of that silence. And speaking of silence, there's another historical blank here, right?
There is. The official shogunate documents have a section detailing this whole event. But the name of the traitor, the person who actually betrayed the 6 martyrs, is heavily blacked out with ink.
Just deliberately erased.
Erased. To this day, nobody knows who sold them out.
It's a chilling reminder of how history is curated by the victors. But, human oppression isn't the only force that boxes people in. If we move forward to our third story, in the 19th century, we see the locals fighting a very different kind of overwhelming power, the natural environment.
Yes. Because resisting a local lord is one thing. You can hide a name on a rock, but you can't hide from the freezing ocean.
Exactly. This is the story of the alchemy of the mountain and the sea.
Right. So during the winter months in the 1800s, poor farmers from the Suwa region, which is a freezing, landlocked alpine area in Nagano, they would migrate down to the Omori coast in Tokyo for seasonal work.
And they came to harvest nori, right, seaweed.
Correct.
So picture this reality for a second. You are a mountain farmer, you've never seen the ocean, and suddenly your winter job is to wade waist deep into the freezing, tidal salt water of Tokyo Bay, often in the pitch dark, to harvest a crop that is incredibly vulnerable to diseases and shifting weather.
It sounds like a nightmare.
The ocean must have been absolutely terrifying to them. It's an alien landscape that can kill you and your livelihood in an hour.
It was a brutal existence. So, to survive this psychological and physical ordeal, these Suwa migrants formed a tightly knit gold. But crucially, they brought their inland mountain water god beliefs straight to the coast.
And here's where it gets really interesting. They essentially performed ancient spiritual cloud seeding.
That's a perfect analogy.
They would travel up to the Suwa Grand Shrine in the Alps, collect Otensui, which is holy water that drips from a specific shrine roof, and Shinsha, holy sand, from beneath the shrine.
And they would physically carry this down the mountains, taking incredible care never to let it touch the ground.
Right, and bring it all the way to Tokyo Bay.
The underlying philosophy here is a deliberate, cross-regional geometric overlay. In their worldview, they were fusing the fresh alpine power of the mountains with the saltwater power of the bay.
It's like combining two massive batteries.
Yes. When the seaweed was struggling or diseased, they would ritually drop this mountain water and sand into the ocean to create an energy channel between the Alps and the bay.
Incredible.
It gave them immense resilience. It allowed them to impose a familiar spiritual geometry onto a totally unpredictable environment.
I do have to play devil's advocate for a second, though. I mean, as much as I love the idea of a spiritual bridge, we live in a physical world, right? Sand doesn't cure plant diseases just because a priest blessed it.
Right, right.
So is there a scientific consensus on why they thought this worked, or is this just folklore bleeding into the agricultural record?
Well, that is the most baffling scientific blank in the entire report. Because, according to the historical records, the seaweed that was treated with this specific sand and water genuinely grew darker and richer in chlorophyll.
Well, so it actually worked.
It actually worked, and modern science still debates the mechanism. Like, was there an undocumented trace mineral fertilizer hidden within that specific alpine sand?
Oh, that makes sense.
Or did it subtly alter the pH of the localized tidal water? Or, was the psychological boost so strong that the farmers simply worked harder, tending the nets better, because they believed the mountain god was protecting them?
A placebo effect for farming.
Exactly. We really don't have a definitive answer.
It's a genuine mystery where faith and agriculture overlap. And if you want to touch this history, you really need to visit the Omori Nori Museum in Heiwan-Omori Park.
Oh, that museum's fantastic.
It is. They have these giant, authentic wooden nori boats sitting right there in the dim light. You stand next to them, and you get hit with the dry smell of old cedar wood mixed with this faint, decades-old, salty seaweed scent that's somehow still trapped in the timber.
And the connection remains unbroken, too. If you travel up to the inland Suwa Shrine today, there's a giant wooden dedication plaque from 1852.
Oh, painted by a famous Edo artist, right?
Yes, and it's thanking the mountain water gods for a good seaweed harvest down in Tokyo.
I love that. But this delicate balance, the mountain water, the sea, the hidden graves, the sacred boundaries, it was entirely upended when modern industrialization slammed into the neighborhood. Which brings us to story number 4. The 1910 flood.
Yeah, this is where the physical landscape changes forever. Because for centuries, the local geography had relied on organic, winding drainage channels.
Right.
These waterways naturally followed the contours of the land, respecting the energy flow between the higher plateau and Tokyo Bay.
Yeah.
It was a drainage system that literally breathed with the earth.
Right. But then came the push for modernization. The new Keihin Railway, which is now the JR Tokaido line, was built straight across the landscape.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, from an engineering and geomantic perspective, that railway acted as a massive steel and stone dam. It completely choked off the natural organic water flow.
So it was just a wall blocking everything.
Exactly. So when a massive typhoon hit in 1910, the water couldn't escape into the bay as it had for thousands of years. It hit the railway embankment and violently backed up into the town.
So we're basically looking at an engineered disaster disguised as an act of God, simply because secular engineers refused to respect the land's original geometry.
That's exactly it. The local beliefs strongly lean toward a spiritual interpretation, of course. They saw the flood as the land's pushback, an energy backflow, because the Earth was suffocating.
Which makes sense from their perspective.
Yeah, but the state's response to the disaster was to just double down on modernization. They forced strict grid mapping on the town. They buried the remaining organic waterways inside impermeable concrete pipes.
They paved over the magic.
They did. They permanently severed the capillaries that connected the people to the Earth's energy. The physical safety of a modern sewer system came at the cost of spiritual silence.
And you can feel that silence today. Like, if you go to the west exit steps of the JR Omori station near the EY Shrine, you are standing on the exact spot where the railway severed the plateau from the bay.
Yeah, it's a very intense spot.
You don't smell pine trees or moss here. You smell the sharp tang of engine oil and hot brakes. And as you stand there, you feel the continuous rhythmic vibrations of the commuter trains shaking the concrete right through the soles of your shoes.
It's relentless.
It is. If you close your eyes, feel that mechanical shaking and imagine it as the echo of those trapped 1910 floodwaters. The ancient Earth is still down there, vibrating, trying to breathe under the pavement.
That vibration is actually a perfect transition into our final story. Because modern grid mapping didn't just trap the water, it fractured the deepest, most ancient portal in the entire neighborhood.
Right.
We were going way back now, past the medieval tax collectors, all the way to the prehistoric Jomon period.
Story number 5, the War of the Shell Mounds.
Right, so in 1877, an American zoologist named Edward S. Morse was looking out the window of a train, ironically, the very same railway line that caused the flood.
Wow, small world.
Yeah, and he spotted an ancient shell mound. He discovered the Omori Shell Mound, which is basically the birthplace of Japanese archaeology.
But calling it a shell mound or a garbage dump completely misrepresents what it actually was to the people who built it.
Oh, absolutely. It's a completely different ontology. In the Jomon worldview, all things had spirits. When you ate a fish or a deer, its physical body nourished you, but its soul had to be properly returned to the afterlife, a realm they called Tokoyo.
Right, so it wasn't trash.
Not at all. The shell mound was a carefully constructed, multi-dimensional portal for a ritual called Okuri, the sending off of spirits. It was a space where life and death flowed into each other continuously.
That is so beautiful.
You didn't just throw a shell away, you placed it there with intention, thanking the animal for its life. It was a unified, completely sacred space.
Okay, so you have this sacred, unified continuum of life and death. And then modern Tokyo expands. Administrative borders are drawn up, and they happen to slice right through the middle of this ancient site.
Yeah, right down the middle.
It's as if modern bureaucracy took a chainsaw to a time machine just so two different mayors could cut a ribbon.
That is exactly what happened. Because the original coordinates got murky as the city urbanized. Two different modern wards laid claim to the discovery. Shinagawa Ward built a monument in 1929.
Okay.
And Oda Ward built their own monument just a year later in 1930.
Yeah.
Modern administrative borders completely severed the space.
That's so sad.
It is. The modern state prioritized academic prestige and political boundary lines over the Jomon concept of a unified spiritual portal. They just broke it in two.
It is absurd, and it's right there for you to see. The Odaward Omori Shell Ruins Monument is just 300 meters away from the Shinagawa one, but they are entirely separated by the roaring JR train tracks.
Yeah, the juxtaposition is really striking.
If you visit the Oda Monument, the sensory experience is intense. You breathe in metallic dust, you get hit by these violent gusts of wind every time a commuter train blasts past.
It's loud, it's aggressive.
Yeah, and you reach out and touch the rough texture of that 1930 stone monument, and you realize you are feeling the heavy, literal weight of modern steel and concrete crushing down on an ancient soul portal.
And to add one final layer of mystery to all of this, there is a historical blank here that still haunts archaeologists.
Right. The missing artifact.
Yes. During Morse's original dig, local farmers who were hired to excavate reported digging up strange clay figures.
Mud dolls.
Yes, the mud dolls. Clay figures that were reportedly buried with non-human bones and marked with intricate geometric lines. But these artifacts mysteriously vanished.
It's gone.
Completely omitted from Morse's official Tokyo Imperial University report. No sketches, no photographs. They just disappeared into the void of history.
It's like the official modern record literally couldn't compute the ancient magic, so it just deleted it.
Precisely. And if we synthesize this entire journey, looking at former Iriarai town, we realize it is not just a Tokyo suburb on a map.
No, definitely not.
It has functioned for centuries. It's this kind of spiritual quarantine chamber. It's a space defined by a constant, centuries-long tug of war.
Right. On one side, you have local sacred autonomy, the natural flow of energy, the rituals of grief, the mountain sea alchemy.
And on the other side, you have the secular grid of the state. The tax collectors, the censors, the railways, the ward boundaries.
And what we see from the tax-free borders to the hidden tombstones to the fractured shell mounds is that the human need for a spiritual anchor always fights back against being boxed in.
The human spirit refuses to be drawn on a grid.
Exactly. Because official histories leave so many blanks, The missing Jaman clay figures, the unknown traitor of 1677, the exact date that sacred tax barrier fell.
There's so much we don't officially know.
Right, so the true history isn't neatly printed in a textbook. It's written in the damp stones, in the vibrations of the train tracks, and in the quiet corners of hidden shrines.
It's in the landscape itself.
Yeah. So my challenge to you is to find this additional information yourself. If you are ever in Tokyo, get off the train at Omori Station. Physically visit these sites.
Highly recommend it.
Stand under that torii gate and feel the temperature drop. Touch the back of that double-sided tombstone. Close your eyes and see if you can uncover the hidden truths that the official records tried so hard to erase.
And as you think about the murky reality beneath the clean lines of modern urban planning, I really want to leave you with this one important question. If every modern city is built on top of ancient spiritual geometries, what invisible boundaries, forgotten portals, or hidden sanctuaries are you walking over in your own neighborhood every single day, completely without realizing it?